We have a very special guest here with us today. In the midst of Holy Week, Reverend Laurie Coffman has found time to sit down and meet with us. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Dion.
Laurie, tell me about your role here at Croasdaile Village.
I have spent the last 12 plus years loving my work here. I think of it as a high calling that I get to be the one who walks that lonesome valley with people when they're going through the valley of the shadow of death, when they are falling in love and wanting to get married, when they are going through a faith crisis and they no longer believe what they used to believe and they wonder if they can have a more grown-up faith that will match their more mature wisdom. I get to be present to people in whatever their pathway is. Even if it's not my pathway, my job is to come alongside people and to pray for them and to listen to them and to walk with them through whatever things they're going through. So it's a beautiful job to get to be a spiritual presence and to honor the spiritual pathways of all the people who live here, work here, or love those who do.
Tell us what brought you or what led you here to Croasdaile.
I've got to start further back than Croasdaile. I grew up in a good Christian family in West Texas, was a church kid. When I was about 17, I went to a charismatic church with a good girlfriend, and we had a great youth evangelist. I fell in love with Jesus, and I wanted to be with him and hang out with him and be like him and love him all the rest of my life. And I couldn't imagine I could be a preacher, because whoever heard of a girl doing something like that? But I just kept questing for more. I did youth ministry in rural churches. I did youth ministry in mega churches in Dallas and in Cincinnati. And I just kept saying, I think there's more, I think there's more, what can I do? And a very wise pastor kind of told me that I was making God too small by thinking I couldn't be called to ministry in a pulpit in a church. And he gave me a chance, and he sent me to school, and I wound up coming to Duke when my husband got a job here in Durham as a medical illustrator. And I loved my days at Duke, and they grew my soul and grew my mind and grew my theology and grew my heart. And I just have been so blessed to have a ministry as a United Methodist clergywoman in North Carolina. I pastored a church for 17 years that was full of LGBTQ people and all kinds of other folks that had felt like misfits in the church, and it was a little kingdom of God place that just blessed me daily and challenged me mightily, because I didn't know nothing about none of that stuff until God put them in my hands and said, love them for me. And so I did. Then I went to the VA Medical Center for chaplaincy training and learned about veterans and learned about pastoral care and learned about how to be a person who can just sit with others during their difficult times without trying to fix them or help them be more like me, but just to be with them where they were. And while I was in that chaplaincy training, Howard DeWitt offered me an opportunity to come to the United Methodist Retirement Homes here at Croasdaile Village, and it's just been a great joy for 12 plus years to be a part of it here.
What a beautiful thought of wanting more. Each of us have always wanted more in life or wanted to do more. Tell us about wanting more.
I believe that's part of the way God calls us to what our heart's deepest yearning is, wanting to understand people more, wanting to serve more, wanting to love more. And for me, that's grown so much while I've been here at Croasdaile Village, because now my ministry is not just to people who aspire to be Christ-like, but people who want to be a good Jew, want to be a good Muslim, want to be a good Buddhist, want to be a good Unitarian, or don't want to be identified with any particular religion, and yet they are still living their lives day by day, yearning to be better than they were the day before and to learn more. So the neat thing about being at Croasdaile Village is I get to be a chaplain for all of those people. Like in this confluence of this month, we've had the first days of spring, the vernal equinox, and so people who are earth lovers and nature lovers, we get to honor that. We're in the midst of Ramadan, and our Muslim friends here are fasting all day, every day for the whole month until the moon is new again. And one of those employees gave me this gift. Any idea what this is? This is a Kaaba. Oh. It is a replica of the temple at Mecca, where Muslims make their holy journey and march around this 7 times in a counterclockwise direction, saying their prayers and honoring Muhammad and Allah. And so here we are in the middle of Ramadan, and Jews are about to go into Passover time when they're celebrating deliverance from enslavement in Egypt, and they eat unleavened bread and drink several cups of wine with their meal and honor what God has done for them. And so here we are as Christians, also fasting and praying and seeking God's best. And we just had Palm Sunday, where 100+ people were waving their palms and singing in worship, in Christian worship Sunday morning. And then we heard the story of the end of Jesus' life as he was coming to his own Jewish celebration of the Passover with the unleavened bread and the cups of wine, and reinterpreting that tradition for the people gathered around, knowing that he was about to die. So that brings us to the close of Holy Week, when we will have a service of Tenebrae on Thursday night. That's a service of shadows, of darkness, how the room and the candlelight and the stories get darker and darker and darker until Jesus has been killed and laid in a borrowed tomb. And we have ways of honoring that grim truth. Catholics here will often take their rosary and use these as prayer beads to pray the prayers that have been handed down over many centuries, and also to pray their own prayers. One of the things that we'll do on this Friday is the Stations of the Cross, where we will walk through 14 different panels similar to this one. Each one tells a story of what happens along the way there in Jerusalem. And for many Catholics, Episcopalians, and other traditional Christians, this becomes a very significant way of praying their prayers with their feet, with their fingers, with their heart. This artwork came from the Santa Barbara Mission in California, where some Franciscan Catholics set it up in 1786, and it was a Croasdaile resident who provided us with the opportunity to do this. We're very grateful to Joyce who did that. And the booklet is a different page for each of the different stations, and helps to bring it into context with our own yearnings for social justice in the world today. So every step of what Jesus was undergoing in the early century of Christendom, what we now call Christendom, we're going through in our country as well. So it makes it all pretty relevant.
Tell us how you extend yourself and your gifts to those here at Croasdaile.
Well, I really love the work of a pastor, which is preaching and praying and pastoral care. But just as much as that, I love diversifying all of us here at Croasdaile. We started an anti-racism group 4 years ago when George Floyd was murdered, and we didn't understand. We didn't understand police brutality. We didn't understand what Black people were trying to tell us. We didn't understand why the injustice. We didn't understand that racism is still so prevalent in our country and in our village and implicitly in our own biases. And so we got together for a week or two to look at that, and here we are 200 weeks later still looking at it and realizing that we've not learned our true American history because so much has been left out or obliterated, and we're needing to unlearn some of our old truths and learn some new ways. So that Tuesday afternoon 3 o'clock group, it's now called Cultural Awareness, is a real life giver for me and for many residents who live here. It's neat that we're using Hollywood films now to help embrace otherness. We've all been the other, the one, the misfit that didn't fit in, the one that somebody else didn't like. And we want our village to be a place where others are honored, others are beloved, where we see it as our work to learn what is the vocabulary and the heart song of other people so that we can love each other better and make this village the diverse place that our mission statement says we are to be.
It sounds like Holy Week is of great importance to you and others during this time.
It is. I think it boils all of our stories down into 1 week, how we can begin with a parade or a political demonstration, however you want to see Palm Sunday. It goes through the heartbreak of being betrayed by friends, being ignored by the people we thought we could count on. It goes through the heartbreak of death, even death by torture, death by the state, death that doesn't make sense. And it ends with joy. And it makes me believe over and over every year that God takes the worst of things and brings goodness out of it. God takes our most desolate days and nights and brings sunshine and springtime once again. And I see that in the ways that residents come to life, because many people here have folded on their childhood faith and it no longer serves them well. But it's like a seed in the ground that looks dead and buried, but then you see the little green shoot and life comes forth again. And that's just the story of the gospel for me, and the story of my life is God takes the worst and brings out the best. I'm so thankful for it.
Laurie, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being a friend to so many. May you and all who receive this broadcast or hear this broadcast also know peace and joy.